Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me continue with the second part of our content, which is in the previous video we covered on requirement engineering, right? Let's now move on to system design. Okay, for this system design, the main content covered in this video is system modeling and architecture design. Okay, so this is the topic that we covered: context model, interaction model, structural model, behavior model, and architectural modeling. Okay, before this, what you have did was during requirement engineering is that if we if you have performed it, we are able to get the user requirement and also system requirement, right? So the next step is to actually perform the design part. Okay, one way of performing it is through system modeling, right? So now that we know what the system functions and services are, including its constraint, so you can have we have enough information so that we can try to design for that particular system. So in system modeling, it is actually a process of developing abstract models of a system. Basically, we are creating a models, okay, to convert the user requirement and system requirement to a more detailed form so that we can actually pass it to the developer to develop it. Okay, and you will realize that when you are doing system modeling, you realize that there are many perspectives, many views. Okay, so in this course, we learn several views because system modeling can actually be done in different ways, right? So nowadays, when you are doing system modeling, you normally support it with graphical notation. Okay, there are some diagrams and including with some description. Okay, the use of diagram is because it is a common notation among those who are working in the software industry, so it's easier to capture and to share the information, right? During system modeling, when you are doing system modeling, it actually helps the analyst to understand the functionality of the system. Okay, and models are used to communicate with customer. So based on what the system analysts understand from what has been performed during requirement engineering, this analyst will try to convert it to graphical notation to capture the information about the functionality, the services of the system. And then from there, so whenever they talk to the customer, they will be using this diagram. So this system modeling is actually performed also on the existing system. Okay, especially if you are developing or extending functionality of an existing system. So of course the existing system is already there, right? So and sometimes that system are being developed by another company. So now that the customer is looking or wants to extend their existing system, so the system analyst of the new software company need to understand how does the existing system works. So that's why they will go and study whatever documentation, do observation, and try out the system. So from there, they know what the system is all about, and then they try to come up with the system modeling. Okay, and also system model is also performed on the new system that you are going to develop. Okay, why? Because in doing so, it reflects that the system analyst do understand the proper system. Okay, because that system analyst is able to capture it in the form of documentation, in the form of diagram. Okay, so by having this document, this system model, they can use it to design the proposal, the contract with the customer, and also to document the system implementation. Okay, I've mentioned just now when you are doing system modeling, you are actually uh, it comes with a different views. Okay, so among the views or perspective are external perspective, interaction perspective, structural, and also behavioral. Right, so they will be uh, the system requirement will be captured in a different perspective. Okay, so the first one, external perspective, shows or want to model the context or the environment of the system. So we want to know. So the system that is going to be developed, what are the system that the new system will talk to or to communicate with. Okay, and in terms of interactions, okay, you want to model the interaction between the system. Now that you know this system will be communicating with other system, so you want to know how do they communicate. And then the third perspective is structural perspective. You basically want to model the organization of the system. Okay, what are the components within it? Okay, how are they being organized? And then the last one is in terms of behavioral. Behavioral is that you want to model the dynamic behavior. You want to see how the system uh, respond responded when it is being executed. Okay, so how does it respond to event? So this is more like you want to know how does it behave when, for example, when you click certain buttons, or when you make a request um, through the user interface. Okay, among the common diagram that are being used to capture this information is UML diagram. Okay, UML diagram is actually allows, because it has different diagrams, it allows all these four perspectives to be captured. Okay, so for example, use case diagram is to show the external perspective, to show the interaction between the system and the environment. The sequence diagram is to show the interaction between the actor, the user, and the system, and also between the, if the system is having another system to communicate with, so it's able to show. The class diagram actually show the structural, so it shows in terms of object um, in the system and how these objects or classes actually communicate with one another. And the last one, which is covering from the perspective of behavioral perspective, in UML diagram, there's a diagram called state diagram. So this is to capture the the behavior or the dynamic interaction between internal and external event. Okay. So I've mentioned just now, so this UML diagram is actually in the form of a graphical. It have this graphical diagram that using certain notation. So it allows why they use this kind of graphical models is to help to facilitate discussion, because everybody should have a common understanding of the notation in the diagram, so they know what is the kind of information they represented. And also it's a way of documenting, uh, try to record the existing system as well as the new system. Okay, so it should be this diagram is having different level of details, so the more detail the better, especially when you want to pass these models to the um, programmer to implement it. Okay, let's have a look at the first perspective, which is the external perspective. So it is actually being achieved by drawing a model called context model. Okay, context model is actually to show the operational context. So you want to know what is inside the system, what is the outside of the system. So we want to know the boundary of the system. Okay, social and organizational concern may affect the decision on how to set the system boundary. Okay, so architectural models show the system and its relationship with the other system. Okay, we'll come back to architectural model later on. So context model basically we want to know the boundary because when you are developing a system, you need to know the scope. Okay, how far you should go. Okay, uh, so that by doing that you can actually plan well so that with the time given you can plan it so that as you know the scope so you can plan well. Okay, so I mentioned just now system boundaries actually tell you what is inside and what is outside of the system. Okay, so um, okay, this is a diagram of a context model. Okay, so for example, in this example, they want to develop a system called mental care. So this is actually a case study given in the textbook where this system actually is a system to handle patient with mental illness. Okay, so this system is the one that will be built, but uh, we want to know so what are other systems that interact with the proposed system. Okay, because this is a mental uh, a system that handle patient with mental illness. So it also interact with the prescription system, the system to handle the medicine admission. Okay, when the patient is admitted to the hospital, of course we want to be able to keep track of the patient record system and also on the reporting purposes. So context diagram actually show the boundary. Okay, so what will be covered? What are the system that will be communicating with the proposed system? So let's say there is another one which is on it need to interact with the government agency and so on if it is needed, so you need to include it, else you maintain it as what has been agreed with the customer when you identify this. Okay, context model uh, only show how the system is only going to show other systems in the environment, but it does not show how the system will be developed, right? So just now you only see, oh, okay, the system that you are going to develop, what are other systems that will be interacting with it, but it's too simple that it does not tell you how the system will be built. Okay, there is another model called process model. So process model uh, will cover on how the system will be built, right? I mentioned to you just now. Um, nowadays, all these processes, the documentation is using UML diagram, and one of the diagrams is called activity diagram. So this is an activity diagram that can be used to capture the process. If used to capture the processes for the business. Okay, it looks like this. So process model basically telling how the system will be used. Okay, so using the same example again, the mental system just now, right? So this is a process to show how um, this is called a process called involuntary detention. So at times, sometimes this mental patient um, is not taking their medication and they are not behaving normally, and sometimes they are in a very dangerous state. So in UK, so this is a system that is being used in United Kingdom, where the regulation in that country allows the hospital to to actually take the patient, and depending on the patient situation, if that person is dangerous, they will put it in one secure place first. If that person is not in a good condition but is not dangerous, that patient will be admitted to the hospital. So this is done without their consent, because these are mental illness patients. So they are not uh, thinking in a normal way. Okay, so this part of the processes is to capture this process. Okay, so let's say the doctor identified that um, the patient can be taken, can be put under involuntary detection. Okay, so the process is that the patient will be explain their right. Okay, and then they will record the detention decision, right? And then depending on the cases, whether they are dangerous or not, the patient, if they are not dangerous, they are admitted to school or to the hospital. And at this point of time, admission system will be involved, right? So if it's dangerous, if the secure place is not available, they will put into at the police station first, or if the place is available, they put it in the secure hospital. Okay, and then so at this point of time, so the other processes that will be going on is to inform social care, okay, to inform the family members and to update the registration. So this is actually involving the mental health care again. Okay, so this is actually showing the system design from the process perspective. Okay, so at this point of time, you can see that it is great.